It's funny to think that in the world of WWE, you can be on the back foot as soon as you walk in the door. Usually when you get a new job, the first few weeks are at least a feeling out period, but if you're told you're about to go out in front of 10,000 people and pretend you're a camel, you're in trouble. Now, we haven't had that gimmick yet, but would you put it past Vincent Kennedy McMahon? Exactly. While sometimes such plans pull the rug out from beneath a performer, during others it just serves as a funny story after the fact. It's truly amazing to see someone get burdened with this kind of nonsense and then come out the other side swinging. If you're truly special, fans don't even remember either, or if they do, it just becomes a nice anecdote. It's the equivalent of coming back from the dead. I'm Simon for What Culture. This is 10 WWE superstars who survived the worst booking ever. Number 10, William Regal. Do you know who William Regal was when he debuted in WWE in 1998? He was Steven Regal, and he was a real man's man. That's right, he wore a hard hat, came out to music that sounded like it was from some B-rate TV show about DIY, and was interested in doing things like chopping logs and fixing your TV. Why? Because he was a man's man. Whatever that means. Regal wore that ridiculous headwear to the ring while also having his knee pads on, and he really did look like my first creator wrestler. There were no rules, so why even think about them to begin with? It wasn't a great time for Regal all around, as personal issues ended his WWE run and saw him eventually return to WCW, but that is when it turned all around. After coming back to a Vince McMahon-owned ring, the Brit found his momentum and became a huge success story. Renamed William, Regal fell into the commissioner and goodwill ambassador role perfectly, and he delighted in calling people silly pillocks. He also said bollocks a few times. He couldn't have been more legit and also managed to be a badass good and bad guy. Fair play to Will too, he never did anything but throw himself into these roles with everything he had. Number 9, Chavo Guerrero. Chavo Guerrero never really got his due in WWE. He did have a great tag run alongside Uncle Eddie and a decent time in the Cruiserweight division, but anyone who had seen him in WCW knew he was capable of so much more. Apparently the solution to all of this was Kerwin White. Yep, WWE decided to recast Guerrero as a golf-playing white guy who denounced his Mexican heritage. It was completely misguided and kind of offensive, and unsurprisingly, fans didn't accept it at all. In fact, it was dead from the very first vignette. I mean, who the hell was going to care about Kerwin White? When Eddie Guerrero did tragically pass away a few months after this, everybody saw sense to ditch it and just let Chavo be Chavo and show the world what he could do. So the circumstances were horrible, but within weeks, Guerrero had competed in so many top-tier matches, the crowd completely forgot about it. He was just that talented between the ropes. Number 8, Bray Wyatt. If you've never seen Bray Wyatt introduce Sister Abigail from a Raw in October 2017, go and check it out now, or actually maybe don't. You will be baffled and probably wonder if this was some kind of joke. I'm still trying to figure it out because it was so bad and it was so dumb. In short, Wyatt put a bedsheet over his head and pretended he was his own female sibling, or whoever the hell she's meant to be. It was excruciating to watch. This is saying something too, because Bray has been subjected to plenty of bad booking over the years, and yet this was worse still. I don't know how Finn Balor, who had to watch this from the ring, kept a straight face. It honestly felt like a joke. It was the nail in the coffin for this version of the character, but Wyatt himself is so creative, he repackaged himself as a kids' TV presenter with a seriously screwed up alter ego and won everyone over again. Only he could do that too. On paper, that sounds terrible. Let's never do anything like this again. Number 7, Seamus. Baron Corbin does a good job as the King. The gimmick has probably worn out its welcome in 2020, but Baron is goofy enough with it to make you want to see him punched in the face for actually thinking he's royalty. That's the whole point of it, but it was not the same for Sheamus. Winning the King of the Ring in 2010, the Irishman was given the worst Halloween costume of all time and still expected fans to think he was going to kick your ass. Looked like he was going to knock on your door and shout trick or treat. Even management realized this was a huge error and scrapped it in order for the man to turn good guy next summer, but this could have been the end for anyone who didn't have Sheamus's skills. Thankfully, he knew how to steer through muddy waters, and now he's back to just being one big massive bully. I tell you too, even with blips like this, we shall still miss the Irish curse when he's done. He is underrated. Number 6, Batista. Batista went from carrying a donations box to headlining WrestleMania in 3 years. That's incredible no matter how you look at it, because when Big Dave was called up from OVW, he was told he was now Deacon Batista and he would accompany Reverend Dave onto the ring. None of this was any good. Not only did the character no sense, like who was this dude, but here we had a Batista, a guy so big he like didn't fit through doors, and we decided to cover up his physique. It's one of the most un-Vince McMahon things ever, and when you first saw it, no one thought this person would be world champion, including Batista. He has said numerous times while he loved Devon, this gimmick sucked. Thankfully, he got out of it to join Evolution, and the rest is history. If you only know Batista from his "I'm gonna kick your ass" run though, go and check this out. You will not believe it. Number 5, Steve Austin. When you learn that Steve Austin walked into the WWE, got given the $1 million title, and got paired with the $1 Million Man, you may wonder why anybody considered this bad. Well, if it was anybody else, it wouldn't have been really. Given the wrestler and the era though, there's no two ways about it. The ringmaster as he was known was rubbish, and Austin knew it. And think about it, he had just signed with the over-the-top World Wrestling Federation and got told his character was going to be a no-nonsense wrestler. It was a death sentence in the mid-90s. If you couldn't talk, you weren't making your way up the card. The point was, however, that Steve could talk and just needed the opportunity. It's why he did whatever he could to shed this dumb persona, become stone cold, and also become one of the biggest stars in history. Talk about reading the tea leaves and betting on yourself. Who knows what would have happened had he been kept in this role too? Doesn't bear thinking about. Number 4, Kane. The one thing going for everybody else on this list is that their gimmicks were at least original. Glenn Kane Jacobs was not given the same saving grace. In 1996, after Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had left for WCW, Vince McMahon phoned up the soon-to-be Big Red Machine and told him he needed him back on the road ASAP to play the fake Diesel. That is right. It was made worse because Rick Bogner was also recruited to play fake Razor Ramon, and all this did was piss fans off. Jim Ross, under orders, had to pretend that 2 of WWE's most popular characters at the time were about to return, and instead it was a couple of posers. So it was a troll, and it failed miserably. At this point, the future seemed gloomy for Jacobs too. He'd also been forced to be a wrestling dentist known as Isaac Yankem, and that was even worse than this. Amazingly, the role of Kane came along and allowed Glenn to remain in the company for 20 years plus. Nobody saw that coming, and today, he is one of the most beloved characters ever. What is wrestling? Number 3, Mark Henry. When Mark Henry went on his Hall of Pain run and won the world title, it felt like a rite of passage. The world's strongest man deserved this given how much he'd been smashing it, but years prior you'd be forgiven for thinking it was never coming. Henry was made to do a lot of nonsense. Between 1998 and 1999, this was at its peak, as Mark had to play sexual chocolate, which even sounds insulting. It saw him date Mae Young, father a hand, and even admit to accidentally sleeping with his own sister. How did he survive this? He did though, and in fact he thrived. Casting him as a badass that looked like he could kick your behind with ease worked shot horror. And I mean, just look at the guy. You gonna mess with him? Nope. And if you did, you'd get your wig split. This truly was one of the dumbest things WWE ever did, and thankfully Henry was able to come out the other side smelling of roses. Remember that fake retirement angle? The best. Number 2, Natalya. I'm not even sure we're done with Natty's mad gimmicks because there always seems to be one around the corner. The absolute worst of these though is when Vince McMahon told her now she was going to have a problem with flatulence. That's right, Natalya was a farting machine. Happening in 2012, we would cut to the back and see Natty letting off wind, much to the shock of her co-workers. She didn't seem to be aware of her issue either, which made her a source of ridicule, and I don't know what the point of this was either. In the 8 years since, Natalya has been such a mainstay and good in the ring that she's almost like a mother figure to the whole women's division who can be relied upon whenever and wherever. Doesn't just happen, you gotta have the skills. Like I say, the odd curveball is still thrown her way, but hey, at this point, at least her legacy is set. Number 1, Kurt Angle. I forget about this all the time, and I'm glad I do. It is horrible. In 2005, Kurt Angle turned into a sex pest who continually told Booker T he wanted to have bestiality sex with wife Charmel. The Olympic gold medalist even told the 5-time WCW champ that his other half had fondled his private parts when he accosted her backstage. This honestly was the worst, and I want to ram my face into a wall. It made fans want to stop watching, those who didn't watch were reminded why they didn't, and on a much more trivial level, it made Angle look like an idiot. He was meant to be a wrestling force, all of this did was the opposite. So how did Kurt jump back from this? Simple. He was such a good in-ring technician that he outworked and outperformed everybody else. He also had a huge spotlight on him the following year when he left WWE for TNA, having top matches with Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and pretty much everybody on the roster. Still though, this remains unforgivable. Know of any other WWE superstars who survived the worst booking ever? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I will talk to you again soon.